My name is Clara Reed. I'm 26 years old, and I live by myself in a tiny apartment in Oak Ridge City. It's a quiet neighborhood, tall buildings everywhere, crowded streets, people always in a hurry, rushing to somewhere important. 2 months ago, my life fell apart. I lost my job at a small travel office where I worked as a receptionist. Those days were the hardest I'd ever faced. The struggle begins. Every single morning, I'd wake up before sunrise. I'd make myself cheap instant coffee, sit at my beaten-up old laptop, and start searching. Job applications, cover letters, emails to companies I'd never heard of. I sent out dozens, maybe hundreds, hoping, praying that someone, anyone, would write back. But nobody did. Days turned into weeks. Weeks stretched into months. My small savings? They melted away like ice in summer. I started counting every single coin just to buy bread and eggs. My rent was almost due, and I had no idea how I'd pay it. Fear became my constant companion. I felt exhausted, scared, completely alone in this big, cold city. A desperate proposal. One rainy evening, my closest friend Lena knocked on my door. She came in carrying a small box of donuts and wore a sweet smile on her face, but I could see worry in her eyes. "Clara," she said gently, sitting beside me, "you look so weak. What's happening to you?" I broke down and told her everything. The job loss, the empty bank account, the fear of being homeless. She listened without interrupting. Then she said something that stopped my heart. "Clara, listen," she began carefully. "Some couples can't have children naturally, so they pay other women to carry babies for them. It's called surrogacy." She paused. "You could earn serious money doing this." I stared at her in shock. "Wait, people actually do that?" "Yes," she nodded. "It's completely legal. You'd be helping a family and earning enough to completely turn your life around." The decision that changed everything. That night, sleep refused to come. Lena's words kept spinning in my mind like a broken record. $500,000. The amount seemed unreal, impossible even. But that kind of money? It could solve everything. I could pay off my debts, cover my rent, maybe even start that little coffee shop I'd always dreamed about. The next morning, I opened my laptop with trembling fingers. I searched online for surrogacy opportunities. One advertisement jumped out at me immediately. Private arrangement. Healthy woman required. $500,000, complete privacy, serious offers only. I read it over and over again. My heart pounded in my chest. It was a huge white house sitting on the quiet edge of town. Beautiful, expensive looking, intimidating. My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I pressed the doorbell. A few seconds later, the door opened. A tall man stood there, calm eyes, serious face, expensive clothes. "My name is Daniel Hart," he said in a deep, steady voice. "You must be Clara." I could only nod. He invited me inside. The house was spotless, bright, silent, smelling faintly of fresh roses. We sat down in his office. Danielle spoke slowly, choosing his words carefully. "This is strictly business," he explained. "There will be no emotional attachment whatsoever. After the child is born, you'll leave. No contact, no connection." He looked directly at me. "You'll live here for 9 months. No phone calls, no friends visiting, no going out. Everything must remain completely confidential." Then he slid a thick contract across the table. My heart was racing so fast, I thought it might burst. I barely read the words on those pages. I just knew one thing. I desperately needed that money. With a shaking hand, I signed my name at the bottom. And just like that, my 9 months began. Life inside the White House. Living in Daniel's house felt strange and lonely. A doctor came every morning to check my health. I ate nutritious meals, rested constantly, and wasn't allowed outside the property. Daniel spent most days locked in his office, working on his computer. He rarely spoke, but when he did, his voice was surprisingly gentle. One quiet evening, I found him sitting alone in the dim living room. He looked lost, staring at nothing, trapped in his own thoughts. When he noticed me, he said softly, "You can sit down if you'd like." We sat in awkward silence for a long moment. Then he started talking. His voice was low, almost breaking. He told me his wife had died 2 years ago in a terrible accident. She'd been pregnant at the time. He whispered, his voice trembling. "I just want to have a family again, to feel that connection one more time." Hearing his pain, my heart ached for him. In that moment, I finally understood the deep sadness living behind those calm eyes. Something shifts between us. After that night, things began to change. Slowly, carefully. Daniel and I started having real conversations about books we loved, music we listened to, small things like the changing weather. Sometimes he'd make me herbal tea without asking. Sometimes he'd even smile. And when he did, his entire face transformed. Softer, warmer, almost boyish. One sunny afternoon, we sat together in the garden. The weather was perfect. Warm breeze, flowers blooming everywhere, birds singing. Daniel looked at me thoughtfully and asked, "Have you thought about names for the baby?" My heart skipped a beat. "Actually, yes," I said softly. "If it's a boy, I like Liam. It means strong-willed. And if it's a girl, maybe Ella. It means light." He smiled warmly and pulled out a small notebook, writing the names down carefully. That tiny moment, it made my heart flutter unexpectedly. I knew this was wrong. The contract was clear. No feelings, no attachment. But my heart, it didn't care about contracts. The unexpected visitor. One morning, loud, angry knocking exploded at the front door. When Daniel opened it, a stunning woman stood there, perfectly dressed, fury burning in her eyes. "Daniel," she screamed, "who is this woman living in your house?" She pointed at me without even looking closely. "She's the surrogate," Daniel answered calmly. "I learned later she was his ex-fiancé, someone from his past who hadn't let go." "You really think this will fix your pain?" she shouted, trembling with rage. "That having a baby with a stranger will help you move on?" Then she spun around and stormed off. After she left, I felt small, unwanted, like an object, not a person. I quietly went to my room and closed the door. That evening, Daniel knocked, but offered no comfort or explanation. "She doesn't matter," he said flatly. I looked up at him with tears in my eyes. "Do I matter?" He didn't answer. He just turned and walked away. My heart shattered silently that night. A few days later, Daniel left the house for a business meeting. I decided to clean his study to keep myself busy. While dusting his desk, I opened a drawer, and my blood turned cold. Inside was an old photograph of me, taken long before we'd ever met. Maybe a year ago, maybe more. My hands started shaking. My mind raced. How did he get this? Why did he have a picture of me? When Daniel came home that evening, I confronted him immediately. I held up the photo with trembling hands. "Why do you have this? Were you watching me? Investigating me?" He looked down, unable to meet my eyes. "I needed to know who you were," he said quietly, "to make sure you were trustworthy and safe." His words stabbed through my chest like ice. "You treated me like a product," I said through tears, "like something you could research and buy, not like a human being." He stood there frozen, silent. He didn't try to stop me when I packed my few belongings and walked out that night. 2 weeks passed. I was back at Lena's tiny apartment, sleeping on her couch. My belly kept growing, bigger every day. One morning, I felt the baby kick for the very first time. Tears streamed down my face. It was the most beautiful, miraculous feeling, and I desperately wished Daniel could have felt it too. Later that same day, someone knocked on Lena's door. When I opened it, Daniel was standing there. He held a small bouquet of white lilies in his hands. His face looked exhausted, but sincere. "Clara," he said softly, his voice breaking slightly. I broke my own rules. I stared at him, speechless. I said there would be no feelings, no connection. He continued, "But I fell in love with you, completely, unexpectedly." My heart stopped. "I don't want this to be just a business deal anymore," he said, stepping closer. "I want you to stay, not just for the baby, but because I want a real family with you." Tears blurred my vision. I stepped forward and whispered, "Yes, Daniel, I'll stay." In that moment, everything transformed. It was no longer about money, no longer about contracts or arrangements. It was about love, forgiveness, second chances, and about the tiny, precious life growing inside me, a life that would belong to us. Together, we began building something real, something beautiful, a family born from pain, but filled with hope. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and make sure to subscribe to the channel for more English learning stories every day.